1.9. And in this section, the author is talking about the truth predicate. And the author is making a distinction between a high level and a low level way of understanding the truth predicate. And I guess the relationship, when he kind of talk about the levels being higher level and lower level, I think the relationship is more akin to the notion of a set and a subset. Namely, if whatever that is true of the higher level is necessarily true of the lower level, because the lower level is the subset of the higher level set. So this is my way of understanding what the author is trying to do. But I just think that the author's way of talking about higher level, low level as not very illuminating and confusing sometimes, because the author is injecting some sort of spatial relationship between the higher level and low level, while it really is about inheritance, right? Any property in the higher level is inherited in the lower level. So at a higher level, the author is talking about, conversational norm of assertion. Remember in section 1.8, we were talking about the truth predicate being honorific, and that is what distinguish mere opinion, right? So to say that the proposition is true, or the truth predicate, is to elevate it beyond mere opinion. So it's a way of highlighting disagreements, and it makes a statement much more valued over mere opinion. So because of that, so the truth predicate has a normative commitments, and it's we have higher, we invest higher judgments. So another thing, according to this author, is that this notion of judgment, of commitments and assertion does not assume representationalism. It does not assume the correspondence theory of truth, or or the truth maker theory of truth, right? And this higher level, according to the author, is an extension of the inferential account of assertion by Robert Brandom. So this is something that you guys can look at in the paper. But anyways, the lower level is what the author has talked about in previous sections, maybe namely, I guess, in section maybe section 1.7 and section 1.7 and 1.6. It seems to me that the author is drawing inspiration from Carnap's linguistic pluralism, which is covered in 1.7, 1.6. Carnap's idea of different linguistic frameworks and different existential qualifiers in these different language. So think about different language games. And when we think about different language games, we should be thinking about Wittgenstein, right? And that these different language games, different languages, is dependent on psychology, needs, and situations, according to the author. The lower level is based on the work of Blackburn, namely his notion of quasi-realism, and the work of expressionists based in the Humean tradition. The author's strategy in this section is really lay out his strategy and of his two-tier picture of the truth predicate, right? He is going to advocate for these at the local level or low level, these Humean expressivism, but subtracting the representational nature of it. And at a high level, the author asks us to adopt Robert Brandom's view of assertion at a higher level. So to see Humean expressivism and how it gives rise to or presupposes representationalism is this. According to the Humean expressivism, there are two types of statements. There are statements about the world, and for example, water. The statement "water is H2O." That statement is true by virtue of of facts about the world, like namely water being what it is, right? But there are a set of other statements, like namely statements about moral statements, like unnecessary suffering is wrong, is true, right? And according to the Humean expressivists, there is no fact of the matter that grounds this statement. So for the Humean expressivists, they make a distinction between these type of statements, and namely, so that there are a set of statements that are representational in nature, and then there are these moral statements that are non-representational in nature. So within Humean expressivism, there's a hidden assumption or vindication, or there's support for the representationalist theory of truth. At the higher level of the truth predicate, right, is the author's adaptation of Robert Brandam's view of assertion, which is this basic idea is that to assert a claim P is to give proof of the truth of P. So if you're going to assert, for example, that you are good at playing the violin, right, you ought to be able to demonstrate that you can play the violin well, right? If you're asserting, for example, that water is H2O, then you ought to be able to demonstrate why water is H2O. And that's the notion of Brandon's view of assertion. But yeah, and the author is trying to say that, well, let's adopt the Brandon's notion of assertion at a higher level and adopt it as a conversational norm of assertion, right? And then at a low level, adopt the Humean expressivism, minusing their presumption of representational theory of truth.